If you're here for organizing the chaos so you can play fast, then you are in the right place. I'm Nick Lewis, and I'm one of the lacrosse reps here at Just Play, and I'll be the moderator for today. And we're thrilled to welcome back-to-back ASUN Coach of the Year, back for the back-to-back ASUN champions, Drew McMinn of the Utah Utes. We also have our other lacrosse expert here, Matt Kimsey, who'll be helping us out and co-hosting. I don't want to speak for Matt, but I know for me, this is one of the best parts about working here at Just Play is collaborating with coaches like Drew, who can bring value to the lacrosse community as a whole, and especially our clients, and show us, the different ways that he teaches using our platform. So if anyone has any questions throughout this webinar, feel free to add them in the chat or utilize our Q&A button down below. I'll be monitoring both of those, and we'll get everyone's questions answered. So with that, I'd like to kick it off to talk a little bit about your background, Drew. I know you used your education in instructional leadership as you've been at two head coach at two Division I teams, and just also adapting to the shot clock era and creating practice standards and that mimic your high-paced offense and pace of play. Can you just talk a little bit about that and how you incorporate that with Just Play?
Yeah, absolutely. And, for us, Nick, again, the pace of play is huge. And, Just Play has really just allowed us to, hit a lot of our teaching outside of the playing field. And, with the background in education, once kind of going through some of the courses that I took in my master's classes, really came across just the importance of just hitting all different types of learners, and for us, you break down the learning types of, visual learners, auditory learners, reading and writing learners, and kinesthetic. We're really able to hit, pretty much each area outside of the kinesthetic learning type, which of course has to be done more physically. But, I feel like with using Just Play, using the diagrams, using the film, we're really hitting the visual learners from that end of things. And, in addition to that, we have the descriptions of what we used to have in our hard copy playbook just incorporated within Just Play. So, as far as guys that, kind of click at a higher level, just reading through material, we make sure that we have all of the content within Just Play. And then, again, on the visual side, really hitting the video diagrams or the videos and the diagrams, and, making sure that, we're hitting the visual learners as much as we can. And then it just allows us to play faster when we're on the field. So, the standards for us, as far as practicing fast, first and foremost, like I just said, we try to hit as much teaching outside of the practice field as we can. So, hitting the sessions of film and in the classroom. And, again, we were talking about it before hopping on this call, but we'll bring up Just Play with the diagrams, everything on our, projection screen and kind of go through things there. And, again, first and foremost, we just want to teach as much as we can outside of the practice field. And it really just frees up to practice faster. So some of the specific standards, we kind of hit 5 rules, with, again, teaching outside the classroom being number 1. Any kinesthetic learning we do, so anything with, physical walkthroughs, we really try to hit before we start practice so that we're not stopping in the middle of practice and slowing things down to go through a walkthrough. So that's a big one for us, that we're hitting those walkthroughs beforehand. And then, as a staff, we can have the rule within our practices that we don't want to stop and end a drill or interrupt the flow of practice for more than 2 minutes. So, we can have the rule if we're going to stop practice, if there's something that we feel that needs to be addressed at the team level and not just on the fly with individuals, that we're going to make sure that we keep that communication to under 2 minutes. And, quite honestly, without using Just Play and hitting all the teaching outside of the playing field, I don't think we'd be able to stick to that standard. But, and we feel like we're really doing a lot of our teaching in other capacities. We're able to really, make sure that we're just allowing them to play once practice starts there. So that's a big one for us. We sprint to the sideline, sprint back out to drills. That's something people always kind of note during games. They'll see our team kind of sprint to the sideline at a timeout or the end of a quarter, but that's a habit that we ingrain into our practice. And whistle blows to end a drill, and that's where we tell the guys that part of our conditioning is going to come from, that we expect them to sprint to the sidelines. Again, 2 minutes to instruct to get into the next drill, and then when we blow that whistle, they sprint straight from the sideline back out to the next drill to perform there. So that's a big one for us. And then, kind of along with that one is just no walking on our field. So we just make sure that guys are constantly on the move and having a pace and an urgency that, we expect to get our competitive advantage with on game days. So, again, the style for us, we really try to make sure that the pace and the urgency is developed within every day of practice. And like I said, with Just Play, we're able to hit a lot of our teaching outside of the practice field to make sure that we can, kind of do things the way that we want to once we take the field.
Yeah, I love that. The sprint on the sidelines, I have noticed that in games, and that one kind of warms my heart. I just like that. That's just awesome. I mean, no matter what the scenario of the game, you got your guys are just running right off, and I love that one. And Matt, I know you had something on that you wanted to bring up there.
Yeah. Yeah, no, Coach, I really appreciate that narrative with it, and just talking about players and kinesthetic learners. I think myself having a 6-year-old son, I'm like, yep, that for sure. There it is. Kinesthetic for sure. But you bring up something that's pretty interesting, talking about, how players now they're Gen Z players, right? It's snackable, relevant content, on their phones, in their hands, that they can leverage that off the field time, I think is really imperative. And I think you guys have hit that really well. You two, and you do a great job with it. So just kudos to you all. I think that's something that you're hitting on, that you're realizing and taking advantage of.
Yeah, appreciate that, Matt. Again, with the phones, I mean, to your point, I mean, with this generation, I mean, when we were constantly reminding our guys to get into their playbooks and, have their hard copy binders with them, we just felt like we weren't getting the response that we would have hoped. And, go figure, once it's on their phones, you just see guys engaging at that much higher of a level.
Yeah, and they're not scrambling, like you said, 10 minutes before the meeting, right, to make sure they got that binder or whatever. It's awesome. So yeah, I mean, maximizing time is obviously super important. But let's get to the good stuff. How do you do it? What are your keys to the guys playing fast? I know on the player app you have 3 presentations on your dashboard: your general, offense, unsettled, and settled. Can you walk us through and share your screen and walk us through, each of those and how you use it to incorporate your high-paced style of play?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll pull everything up now and get started there. Let me make sure I'm getting to the right. Give me 1 second to switch that over.
It's just the other tab, I think you had that.
Yeah, sorry. That's what I had to switch to there.
You're good.
Action.
There we go. So yeah, starting with the offensive progression sheet. I mean, that's where it all kind of starts from us. And, really what we talk about is just, what we want to look to attack in each phase, from the start of when we gain a possession, all the way through our settled 6v6 offense here. So starting out, you can see just within this page here, I mean, when we first gain a possession on the defensive end of the field, starting with the clear, and kind of walk you guys through each segment that we go through, and then, show how we diagram and support the content with video here. So with the clear, you can see those couple points, just working to get upfield and get behind the defense to create a number advantage. Again, just with the message of urgency, we want to first and foremost try to see if we can gain a number advantage as soon as we gain possession of the ball. So those next couple rules, just simple ones, but want to head man the ball upfield to open personnel as quickly as we can, and, look to move the ball first, run second. And then, if we're not getting the number advantages with our breakout patterns there, then we're going to work back and establish our clearing spots once the transition opportunities are exhausted there. So again, starting with the first second that we gain possession, moving across the midfield line, you can see there just with our points that, the attack, and this is where our organization really comes from. I mean, I think we play, a pretty loose style and system, but we certainly have structure within it. And, to the point where the second the ball crosses the midfield line, we want our attack communicating what the scenario is every single possession that we have as we cross the midfield. So first and foremost, looking at number advantages. I mean, establishing if we have a fast break with the 4v3 there. We just have the few kind of simple points there of executing the fast, and, I'll switch over in a minute and get through the details of each one of these. But, First is if we have a reduced number situation with the 4v3, and then what we refer to as our slow breaks with the 5v4 or 6v5. You can see there just with the trailers obviously coming into play if we're working up into those numbers there. And then, if we don't have a number advantage, we're looking to attack in the even segment. So that early O stage for us, just kind of explaining our terminology there. We refer to as the next is just getting the pipe attackman to rotate through. And, we're getting a good strong dodge to the cage, telling our guys they either have to draw a slide or look to get their shot off. And then, again, we're going to rotate the pipe attackman there and push through the backside. And then for a trap, that's just what we refer to with our terminology as a throwdown, pick down. And we label each location there that it can take place. So, with us being in typically a righty break, it can be the original ball carrier throwing down to the near side pipe. If he's pushing opposite the plate, we can trap with the ball carrier in the pipe. We can throw it over, to the point man and trap with the point attackman, or move it to the point guy, and then he can trap down with, the pipe attackman on his respective side of the field there. So, we look for the number advantage first and foremost. If it's not there, we recognize that we're even. We're calling out whether we're pushing to run that next, scenario, or if we're going through into the trap and looking to operate an early O out of that. So, and then lastly, kind of the one that we want to avoid, as you can imagine, with our urgency and pace of play. But, our cycle call is just more of the call to determine we're not looking to push. We're not going to, go in early offense, and we feel the need, whether it was a long possession on the defensive end of the field, or, the person with the ball is kind of exhausted there and not ready to push an even scenario, and we'll get that cycle call and kind of slow things up. And then as we move beyond, once we do cycle, we try to attack kind of something that we're known for is attacking in the substitution game. And, that's the next phase. So if we don't have numbers, we don't look to push in the early offense with a dodge from the ball carrier. Then we're going to look to isolate the subbing advantages and see if we can then create a 6v5 as we're subbing our personnel on and off the field. So, for us, it's really about exposing the short stick personnel, that was playing offense when we were on the defensive end of the field, where we feel like if we can get the number advantages, again, that's first. Otherwise, we want to try to dodge on that personnel and expose them from staying on in the ride. And then, if they're gonna defend us through all those scenarios, we're gonna try to isolate them, trying to get off the field and get the subbing advantage there. So then you can see once we kind of get beyond that, that's when we finally settle into our 6v6 offense after going through each one of those respective reads. And, in course, in turn, trying to make sure that, we settle up and we get scripted into our 6v6 after exhausting all those opportunities there.
Yeah. Yeah, I love how it's laid out. It's super simple and logical, and it's like, it makes a ton of sense to me. I have a question just personally. I understand what you're saying. You're trying to get short stick personnel trapped on. Is that why you call your pass down, pick down trap?
Yeah, exactly. We're trying to trap that personnel in those situations and get those guys stuck. And, what we found for, quite some time in establishing our identity is we really focused on solely the number advantage of getting the ball up the field and creating breaks. And, a lot of teams, knowing that was our MO, just started keeping their personnel on the field. So, at times we had games where we ran into just feeling like we weren't getting the number advantages that we wanted to. And this progression really was, stemming from that obstacle of failing to get number advantages. And, he kind of said, hey, if guys are going to keep if teams are going to keep their guys in the field and their personnel on the field and ride us, and not be willing to sub to prevent that, what's the next stage? And to us, it was, of course, let's put them into early dodging situations and try to expose that personnel that typically isn't going to want to play defense. And then again, if we're not getting them exposed through that segment, then we're now going to isolate the fact that they're going to want to get those guys off the field and make sure that we go through each scenario. So if you sub off, we're going to get you in numbers. If you stay on, we're going to attack you in early O. And then if we don't get, any looks out of that even situation, then we're going to move to that next phase of exposing you in the 6v5 as we sub our personnel off the field.
Gotcha. So I noticed you have can use trap in your 5v4, must use trap in your 6v5, right?
Yeah. So with the 6v5, one of the things I'll get into here with our unsettled rules, but to simplify, we have our attackmen get into an L break every single time, so that they're not trying to read and do something differently. In the past, we've done some different things with slow breaks, and that required the attackman to get into different positions based upon what the read was. And we just found that at times we were compromising ourselves too much because the read was late or the communication wasn't fully communicated across to all personnel, and we just had guys out of position, and we weren't able to execute what we wanted to because of it. So we keep everybody on the perimeter, which, at the 6v5 can be a little bit more difficult because the spacing's obviously just, much less than, working out of smaller numbers there. So, the trap for us, we don't mandate that it's used in that 6v5, but, what we find is if there's not a trailer coming in quickly behind the play and we have the timing to do it, then we want to hit a throwdown, pick down, just because we feel like it can create some extra space on the perimeter once we get the defense rotating there.
Gotcha.
Yeah, great. I got a question for you on that, kind of playing into this. Question from the coach here. Did you put certain constraints on rules during your transition drills in order to rep the next in tracks? Or is it kind of more free-flowing, read and react kind of setup?
Yeah, so it's a good question, Matt. We honestly do both. I mean, at times, like when we run a transition drill, if we're running even transition, we might split it up and say, hey, the first 5 minutes is going to be all next. We're working on rotating the pipes and getting a good early dodge and pushing it through to the backside. And then we'll switch over and, for the second 5 minutes of the drill, we'll say, hey, everything's got to be a trap. And, we want to change up our locations and trap at, again, the near side pipe, trap at the point attackman and trap at the point attackman down to his near side pipe there. So we'll script and dictate. And then once we really feel like we're starting to click and guys are understanding each scenario at a high level, then we kind of try to progress and make them actually read it and call things out on their own there.
Awesome. Makes a lot of sense to me. Cool. You want to hop into that settled or unsettled?
Yeah, so I'll switch over real quickly here and actually hit through if you guys want to see just kind of how we go through each break. So yeah, switching in just to the unsettled rules here that we have. And again, this will explain how I said we're just getting into an L break every single time. But, we'll get into our shot breakdown later. But if you look at the top, just where it comes from, for us, we just want to get our guys to understand what scenarios we are going to create number advantages. So, off of a riding turnover, of course, D to O transition with the clears, anything off of a face-off, a ground ball that we more so chart in the half-field setting. Again, the subbing advantage, and then any quick whistles off of end lines or any restart situation. So, those are the areas that we break down where we plan to get a number advantage and where our guys understand that that's where we're looking to be aggressive to create them. And then as you move into the responsibilities and the roles, again, for our attack, we want to get into an L every single time. And I'll go through just each respective break and again, how that just simplifies for them to stay on the perimeter. And then when you look at our point attackman, again, we position him 15 to 17 yards above GLE. Pipes, are positioned on the hashes, heels to GLE, break back to the ball. Point attackman, as we said in the last one, is responsible for communicating every single break. And then as you get into the specifics there down below, just again, the fast, the slow, and the even scenarios, and then that cycle call that again can come from them or come from the sideline. So the roles that we have there, midfielders, ball carriers, and trailers must work to gain the number advantages. Again, we keep everybody on the perimeter regardless of the number advantage. We do allow our guys to cut if it's getting into shooting space, but for the most part, we want to isolate the 2v1s on the perimeter. So the ball carrier roles, we just, really harp on green light to the cage. So the ball's not going to be stopped. First and foremost, we don't want you expecting to draw. We want you more so being aggressive to attack a gap and get into shooting space. And then if you do draw and you're getting covered there, as we refer to with that term, just simply moving it to where the pressure comes from. So, that's the biggest roles with the ball carriers, just green light into the gap or else get covered and draw the next man before you get into shooting space and then look to start executing the 2v1s. So, the do not engage in 1v1 play, we'll hit with the 2v1 concepts, but really just emphasizing that we don't want our guys putting themselves at risk and allowing the guy to, to disrupt their pass or get into their hands before they're moving it. So for the timing, we want that ball being moved before somebody could actually rotate and engage in a 1v1 situation. And then again, some general rule, but simple, unselfish ball movement. Again, use the 1-mores to reduce our numbers, and move the ball behind the rotation so we can continue to get the numbers down as small as possible before we look to finish there. So the 2v1 concepts, again, with the ball, green light or get covered. And then when getting covered, again, we want to keep our hands free, meaning just like we said above, avoiding that 1v1 situation. Must maintain a passing lane. And then for the off-ball guys, we really harp on, in addition to helping maintain the passing lane, we want to catch the ball where the man can't recover to play you. So we're trying to avoid somebody being able to scrape in that scenario. So off ball with our 2v1s, we tell that man, you have to find the lane, but you have to catch where he can't recover. And then in turn, you're either into that next gap or else you're then drawing that next man in the rotation and continuing the 2v1s there. So then lastly, just, our off-ball rules, we constantly harp on just having our guys have their stick above their shoulder, being in a triple threat position where they're ready to receive the ball and feed or shoot out of it there. So, but again, we want to keep everyone on the perimeter and, really be able to keep things simple where the attack have the same responsibility every single time there. So, and then getting into just each respective break, and this is where we really feel like we utilize Just Play at a high level with hitting each different learning type that I mentioned. So, we want to be able to first and foremost allow the guys to go in and read the description here. So, point attackman calls out the fast, sprints opposite the ball inside that 15 to 17 yard marker. And then, we want them referring to those 2v1 concepts and those unsettled offensive rules that we just went over there. So want them to be able to read through the description. And then through the animation, again, some guys just have it click more, being able to see the diagrams and get through that type of, kind of learning tool. And then, being able to switch over to the video, and show it, in a live setting where we're looking to push a 4v3 break here. Again, no one-on-one, maintain a passing lane, catch where that man can't recover to play you. And then we reduced our numbers down into a 3v2 right here. And then we're reading, the final progression there. So again, just being able to utilize each different learning type there with showing a diagram, having the content in writing, and then being able to show a video that supports it. So 5v4, moving into that, again, you'll see just what I talked about, keeping everybody on the perimeter. Again, start with the description here, but again, same yardage, 2v1 concepts apply. And then with the 5v4, just specific points we have, attacking the corners, should either dodge or drag a corner and then move the ball to the trail mid to the top center gap. If we attack the middle with the ball, we must pick a side and draw a corner. We should pick the side that we are more able to get behind the man into the next gap there. So again, just showing the actual diagram, want to show that rotation and have our guys understand through that element. And then switching over into the film, looking at the actual slow break here with the 5v4, you'll kind of see each one of those concepts applied where, again, we're going to attack a corner, we're going to engage, we're going to catch into that next gap, ideally not allow him to scrape back to the ball. So this one probably threw it back a little bit too early, but again, we were able to attack that next gap, green light or get covered. Again, we want to make sure that this guy's getting the lane, but receiving the ball behind his man. But on this specific play, we were able to step into that next gap and getting the shooting space. So, but like we said in the 5v4, everybody's still maintaining their perimeter, responsibilities. We're not cutting into the middle right here because we just want to isolate every 2v1 on the actual perimeter of the defense there. So, and then switching forward into the 6v5, which, we're either looking to try to attack. Of course, if somebody subs off, this clip here will be somebody subbing off on the ride and they just leave us the 6v5. And then the area that we really look to attack and execute the 6v5 break is in our subbing game. So again, just same points where we can show the description here, have our guys understand again where the attack lines up, everything stays with the L break, the 2v1 concepts being applied, still looking to attack the corners, and then just adding another element with one extra person on each side of the ball there. So again, just showing the 6v5 on the diagram, attack the corner, look to throw back and attack the gaps there. And then we switch over to film. And again, they subbed one off on the ride. We kept all three in on the clear. So our 3v2 was up top. Like we talked about, we're trying to get these guys behind their man into the next gap to draw the next rotation. Can see there, got into the gap. We get covered. We move it before there's a one-on-one. He catches behind the man that's supposed to play him. And now we've reduced our numbers from a 6v5 down into a 3v2 again right here. So for us, the biggest thing is really just the simplicity, of trying to keep things the exact same for the attack, because as I mentioned in the past, just felt like when our guys were trying to read and then move into different spots based upon the break that we were running, we just, found ourselves just, out of position and unable to attack and take advantage of a number situation or, an even situation just based upon our guys trying to scramble and get the correct spots. So, again, that's our reasoning. It's, not that it's a foolproof system that everybody should run, but, for us, we believe in just keeping things simple and keeping every guy on the perimeter and just having the exact same concepts, whether it's a 4v3, a 5v4, or a 6v5, that we can kind of apply the exact same things regardless of the number advantage there.
Yeah.
Coach, that's
Go ahead, Matt.
Oh, sorry, Nick. Yeah, I was just saying I think it's the simplicity is great. Keeping it simple for players and consistent, I think, is massive. But quick question on some of your off the field teaching. Obviously you've got this set up for your players. Do you have team sessions prior to practices where you break this down, or maybe prior to going to the field where you hey, players, pay attention to 5v4s today. We're doing this drill. How do you structure those off field kind of sessions where you leverage this? Are they team or are they kind of individual as you push this to players?
Yeah, like I said, Matt, that's huge for us. I mean, we want to hit as many of these concepts as we can off the field, and that way, it frees us up to just really play as fast as we can. And, it's just our mindset. We're wanting to push urgency in everything that we do, as I said, within our practices. So, we'll have today, I talked to Nick about it. I mean, we were in the classroom with our guys this morning and going over some different concepts. And, again, we'll show the diagrams, we'll show the concepts and what we have in writing, and then we'll go through the video. And, another big one for us that we're implementing now that I think is crucial with Just Play that, was a void for us in the past, but, we're doing a drill section as well within our presentations. And when we're introducing new drills, we can have them on film, we can have a diagram of how that drill is operated and have a description with it. So when we put in new drills, we've been in the classroom and actually showed them that, so that again, we're not doing it on the field where it takes us, 7 minutes and we go down a rabbit hole. And then all of a sudden it's, okay, hey, now we're finally ready to go. We want to hit that outside of the practice field and do it in the classroom. And, again, our drill bank that we've used in the past was more so for us as a staff, but it wasn't really getting across to the players. Where now, again, like we can just send it out and say, hey, check the drill bank out. And, we're going to run these 2 specific drills tomorrow. And even if we're not holding a segment on our own within the classroom, we're telling those guys it's on them to get in and actually look into the drill and make sure that they understand it before we take the field the next day. So again, just always to utilize, the system here within Just Play to prevent us stopping and, slowing things down in the practice setting.
Love that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
We got another question coming up. Do you ever run a flat break if the ball's brought like directly right up the middle? Do you ever go to a flat break, or do you just keep everything on the outside like you're saying?
I mean, honestly, for us, we don't. I mean, there's been times like last year and the year before we had a lefty face-off guy. So, we specifically just said off the face-offs, we're going to get into more of a flat break. But, again, what we find is, more confusion than anything else if they have to actually, operate differently based upon, the situation at hand. So, we really stick to just keeping the break into an L as much as possible, unless there's kind of a reason to go against it. Or, of course, from a scouting standpoint, if we see a team that's struggled in that scenario, we might specifically look to do it. But, again, we'd rather make sure that if we're calling fast and all of a sudden it's an even, that we're still set up to operate and attack it as quickly as possible there. Where, if we're calling fast, we get into a fast break and then all of a sudden, somebody catches up to the ball carrier, we're just not in position at that point to run the next or the trap. So, we really try to stick as true as we can to just maintaining the L and running the break the exact same every time.
Totally.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And simple and on the same page is a great thing, right? Whereas more complex and having just one guy not on the same page, can just ruin it, right? So I love that. So well, cool. So you want to get into some more of this, or you want to hop over to the shot breakdown playlist that you were?
And I can quickly get into just the settled and
Yeah.
then be
Okay.
able to go from there. And then we can hit the shop breakdown to kind of wrap up there. So
Sounds good.
with the settled and you guys can see here, this is where we're adding our drills, and again, that's just to make sure that I hit on that since I just touched upon it. But, running through, and again, we're in the process, which is why we don't have too many right now, but just being able to provide a section where guys can click in, read the content of a drill, see a diagram of it, watch it on video. And then, like I said, if it's a new drill that we're implementing, for the newcomers, they can look at last year's film of that drill and be able to, come into practice kind of understanding what the expectations are there. So, but yeah, that's, our unsettled concepts, for the most part. And then, as we get into our settled offense, going through just a couple of the roles that we have again, but with our systems here, like I said, we certainly give our guys a lot of creativity and, a lot of an ability to read and react and play within a pretty loose system. But, we're not set lists. I know some offenses that have kind of gone in that direction more so refer to, not maintaining a specific set at all times. For us, we really try to keep the structure within knowing that we are in a certain set. And, a big thing that we talk to the guys about is just the reason that we have a set is to tell us who the adjacents are supposed to be at all times and to just make sure that we maintain spacing. So, we never want more than two guys on the inside. We never want more than three guys up top on the perimeter. So, maintaining the set, within our free flow is really a big part of how we do stay structured. So, the formations, those are just the sets we run. The shot breakdown here, again, I'm going to get into that in more detail in a few minutes, but the main thing just wanted to cover within the settled stuff here is our rules. Again, we want to make sure that we communicate the set before we're actually initiating our dodge. Once we settle into our 6v6 offense, we want to call out who we're initiating on at a minimum on that very first dodge of the possession, and then we can flow from there. But we really want structure, on that first attack that we make once we settle on the 6v6 offense. So again, calling out the set, calling out who we're initiating on. You can see there, we just said, unless you're going because no slide is set up and you have that read on your own that the middle's open. But otherwise, we want to get on the same page as quickly as possible before we attack in 6v6. And then again, in using our off-ball movements, any cuts, NASDAQ is just our term for an exchange with anyone else within the formation there. A clip is more so what we refer to as calling just a pick from the inside to the ball. And then the adjacent roles I'll go over in a second. But essentially, no matter what we're doing, where we cut from, if we're exchanging with the guy, if we're pulling a guy out to pick from the crease and getting him out to the perimeter, or if we're, hitting one of our adjacent options on the perimeter with our two-man roles, we want to make sure that we're always balancing the set behind it. So if a guy leaves from the crease to pick for the ball on the perimeter, we're going to cut somebody in from the backside to make sure that, again, we're not overloading the perimeter and we're replacing him with getting an extra guy to the inside there. So the set, maintaining that integrity of what set we're in is really how we keep our structure within allowing them to flow freely. And then, a couple of rules just with our spacing down below. Tell our guys on the inside that they have to stay within 10 yards of GLE and then inside the hashes. If they're getting outside of that spacing, we consider that they're more so getting themselves onto the perimeter. And again, we want to make sure we keep our spacing on the perimeter. So if they pop off and they get to the perimeter, they have to either self-replace or else they're calling our NASDAQ call to exchange with somebody else to then replace and get inside for them. Perimeter players, again, must stay on the perimeter. We don't want them cutting to the middle of the field and, again, getting a third guy to the inside. If they feel that they have a lane or they have an opportunity to cut from the backside or get into the middle of the field, again, they have to either self-replace if they don't receive the ball, or they're calling that NASDAQ and getting to one of those inside guys to exchange out to the perimeter so that we maintain the spacing in the set there. So, and then lastly, just, kind of keeping our structure. If you're out of position without the ball, you must either return again or NASDAQ. And then if the structure of the set is lost, if we feel like, through that free flow, if we've gotten too many guys in the perimeter or we get too many guys on the inside, we want to make sure that we just kind of reset and call out the set and restructure ourselves there. So those are kind of the general rules offensively there. And then, quickly just kind of go through the adjacent stuff here, and how we maintain, our perimeter movement, while staying in the set that we are planning on staying in there. So adjacent roles, just again, we have to have 2 at all times. Like I said, our set is just going to tell you who's supposed to be in front of the ball, who's supposed to be behind the ball. As the ball moves away from you, you must follow and support adjacently. And then, really kind of what we consider our 2-man game, even though it's not just, structured 2-man actions, but basically just what we do as the ball gets dodged towards you when you're on the perimeter. So for us, came up with this term long before I think people started using the term drift, but what most people refer to as a drift, we call a stretch. And again, just more so the explanation, backing away to clear space to make the defender read to stay with you or support adjacently. We can get underneath the ball as the ball is dodging towards us, which can either be with a pick. We talk about if the man's in front of us, we want to pick for ball. If the man's behind us, we want to look to slip and beat him into that space underneath. And then, getting over top with either, again, a throwdown, pick down, our trap call, or we can hit a flip or a fake flip there, with getting over top of the ball carrier there. So, and again, you can see you just must replace or reset after adjacent options are executed. And then again, the only time you should ever stand still as an adjacent is to support the ball on the perimeter if we're drawing a double team there. So I'll go through just kind of the diagrams there. Again, we want to be able to show our guys the content. First option is just what we had explained there with the stretch. You look at the diagram, just simple diagram here, but just showing again, if there's adjacent support, we want to simply just look to stretch behind our man. Again, off-ball rules are the same as our unsettled. We want to try to catch the ball, in a spot that our man cannot recover to play us. And then we're green light into that next gap, just like we talk about with our unsettled concepts there. So switching over to the video. Right here, they're kind of shutting off this backside adjacent, trying to prevent that dodge. So you get a simple dodge from top center. Dodge towards the adjacent. They support adjacently. We look to get that stretch. Ideally, again, we can maintain a lane and be a little bit closer to the cage where the man can't recover. But one of our bigger shooters here felt comfortable staying in the space that he was at. But
hard to argue with.
yeah. Ball pretty hard. So, but ideally, we want them working to get into the best space they can, and again, make sure their guy can't recover there. So. Again, with the underneath action, just have that same explanation of, either picking for the ball carrier if your man's in front of you, slipping if your man's behind, showing it on the diagram here. Again, just simple underneath action with the throwback if we get both people jump into the ball, and then showing that just on video here. Again, as we dodge adjacently towards this top man, his man was behind him. Again, if he would get in front, we feel that he can't play the ball carrier, so we want to pick. Since he's behind his man right there, we're just going to beat him into that space and look to throw back to it. So that's the underneath action, and then the over-the-top action. Again, just add the explanation. Again, we can trap, which is our throwdown, pick down, which is more of what we see in this clip. Or again, we can get a flip or a fake flip, and try to get 2 guys to play one there with that scenario. So again, just showing as we dodge. Again, we're looking to come over top of the ball carrier right there, and then showing it on video. Again, as we dodge from top center, we're dodging at this adjacent, and his read is the same every time. He can stretch, get under, or again, look to come over. So the over action here, again, we started with a stretch. We took ourselves out of shooting space, and then we're just coming right back over top of the original dodger there. So with the adjacent rules, again, we're talking about stretching, getting underneath the ball or getting over top of the ball. And then, like we said, just, making sure that our guys also understand anytime the ball gets dodged away from them, just have the follow description there. And then again, simple animation, but just showing if that man's helped down to the inside, looking for the throwback. And again, then we have video to support it. dodging down the alley, simple throwback. Again, another outside shooter for us, but simple action there where he's just following the original dodge, making sure he's supporting as an adjacent behind it. You can see the guy that was in front of the ball looked to more so stretch. Up there. And then again, looking for that throwback on the follow there for the opportunity. So, and again, the biggest thing for us is that as we're hitting those perimeter actions, like we said, or, if we're pulling a guy out from the crease, that we are always rebalancing the sets, that we have our spacing, and that, we understand who the forward adjacent is and who the return adjacent is at all times there.
That's like that part to whole stuff. Like you obviously, like you said, you've got your rules. You outline really well, and then these are just the small parts of it that you can reinforce with the video and the diagrams. Speaking of that, we do have a question on visual learners. Matt, you want to set that up?
Yeah, Coach. I just think, again, parts of the whole, it's a good point, Nick, and Coach, you talked on this, but you've got all these what would seem to be chaotic situations, but yet the structure is there, right? And that's what you provided with this to players. You talked about structure in sets offensively, and do you find, I guess the question is, do you find with just play that you've got players that learn this faster overall because they're visual, so they can see kind of holistically the set on the paper that's animated with the video, and then they're able to kind of incorporate that? Because we all know those players that have, like, on the field, they have it's called spatial awareness, right? They just know where to be. They kind of have a feel for it. Do you find that onboarding the players of this, whether they're new transfers, has been increased because you're able to give these different looks and opportunities to them?
Yeah, without question, Matt. I mean, we get that feedback from our guys. I mean, they're guys that are like, Coach, for whatever reason, like, the kinesthetic approach doesn't work for me. Like when we're going through a walkthrough pre-practice, it's harder for me to kind of understand what we're going through there. And, watching it on film just seems to click more for me. Or, some guys just, they're like the diagrams are really what kind of helped me the best. So, that's why for us, again, like really try to keep in mind just with the learning types of hitting all four areas. And again, the visual learners, the audio learners, the guys that need more of the reading and writing side, and then the kinesthetics. So, like I said, Just Play kind of hits three of the four, where we're hitting the visual, we're hitting the audio, we're hitting the reading and writing. And then, if we feel like we just need to hit more of a walkthrough and hit the kinesthetic approach, then we implement that, like I said, before we actually start our stretch and get into our practice. But without question, having all areas, I mean, in the past, we just, gave them the hard copy playbook, and then of course we throw in film sessions. We're like, hey, I think guys need to see this on film, but, we didn't have much of a rhyme or a reason, and they were only getting the material as we were putting it in front of them, so just having Just Play and having that at their disposal, that they can always watch a video. They can always, and again, we can send out, simple communication to say, hey, tomorrow we're working on all of our adjacent actions at the midfield, get into Just Play and make sure that you guys are going through the diagrams, going through the film, reading the material, and that way when we get onto the field that, they're that much more prepared, instead of us, like we had in the past, just said, hey, read your playbook, and we hope they did it, and then you show up in the field and you feel like you're kind of starting from scratch and trying to get everything taken care of, and, in turn, just taking away from their opportunities to actually rep through it and, be able to get the physical repetitions.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Thanks, Coach.
Yeah.
Quick run on these videos. We want to talk about, this is what got me most excited as a coach, right? And is just the way that you use these shot breakdown charts, kind of almost like a risk assessment for how you play fast and how you're going to play fast against certain opponents. I know you have 7 examples or 6 or 7 examples of your numbers advantages and how they're created. I know you went over that a little bit. And then you kind of have your own system and for coding those different opponent shot percentages. So can you just run us through that shot breakdown playlist and your thought process behind that, and how you tie it into your scouts in terms of, those percentages and that risk assessment sort of thing?
Yeah, absolutely, Nick. Yeah. And from our end, you can see we kind of have that down under our team documents just because it applies to both sides of the ball. So, but yeah, within our shot breakdown, I'll go through kind of again what we touched on with the transition. So, basically in unsettled scenarios, we have these areas down through the quick whistle. And, I'll try to explain these terms and you guys can ask as I go if I miss something, because we have our own kind of abbreviations and terminology here. But, in unsettled, we're saying we can create a number advantage again off the clear, off of a face-off, off of early offense, we stick to even, but clear, face-off, subbing situation, a ground ball, a ride, or a quick whistle. So, we pretty much, break things down into those 6 areas of where we feel that we can create numbers. And then again, if we're even, we're really looking at that early offensive segment with, not getting the number advantage, but looking to attack them with that next or that trap that we discussed. And then, as you get down, and I'll show through these and open up the questions here, but, as we get down to settled, essentially these areas here that all start with M are just saying a midfield dodge, which, we're more so just referring to any dodge that takes place above GLE. So, we could, of course, have attackmen up top that are in those scenarios, or when we get into the attack dodges, it could be inverts, midfielders dodging. But, it's really looking at just saying how can we create a shot within settled offense? So when we're dodging up top, midi shot on the run, midi 2-man, any type of 2-man action that we explained in the perimeter rules there. So it could be a stretch, it could be an underneath action, an over the top action, a follow, we'll still consider it 2-man. For MBS, we're just, we again termed that on our own. It's just midi backside. And, what we're referring to there is just an up top dodge where you move the ball forward, and push the ball through X to create offense. Feeding the inside, and then midi attack 2-man is more of like the throwdown pick down, where it's a 2-man situation with, the dodge initiating from above the cage, and then, hitting a 2-man with somebody that's, in the attack position or behind GLE. And then as you get into the dodges from behind the cage, again, any 2-man action that we're hitting behind GLE, creating your own shot, if we're going to feed the middle, or if we're going to look to feed up top out of our dodge. So, and, to touch on and answer kind of what you covered there, Nick, I mean, this is what really drives our scouting report, and we break down our shooting against our opponents and, the shots that the opponents have taken and the games that we're breaking down, and, come up with the overall volume, the overall percentages where, on a given game, we might go in and say, hey, this team's given up, 9 clearing shots in 4 games, and, 7 of them have been goals. So simply put, we're putting our foot on the gas on D to O transition, or, maybe it's a team that's just really not giving up any clearing transition because they drop their guys back and they don't sub anybody off for the ride. And, again, kind of looking back to what we talked about with our progression, maybe that means it's the early offense that they're really getting exposed because they're dropping back personnel that, isn't engaged and ready to defend and play 6v6 defense. Or, maybe it's that they're giving up the advantages off the sub. So, we look at the breakdown, and that's how we kind of, again, drive our scouting reports of where teams are getting exposed, where they're giving up their shots in transition, what the percentage of the shots taken are in each one of those areas. And then, we simplify to really just say, hey, these 2 or 3 areas, we're not looking to attack because they just haven't shown any vulnerability there. So maybe we're not planning on getting defensive, to offensive transition in the clearing game. So we're going to tell them, hey, just really think possession every time we clear the ball, because we know that we're going to expose them more in the early offensive segment or maybe in the subbing game. And then again, out of the midfield dodges, teams will show up that they're more vulnerable. Maybe they're late to slide, or, they just give up more shots in the run, or we find that their slide doesn't come until you're inside of 11 yards. We want our guys that we're confident in pulling the trigger to really focus on getting their own in that particular game or that matchup. 2-man, again, could be exposed there, or, maybe teams, slide early and they really cover up the backside adjacent midi pretty hard and they don't help in from up top. And we want to make sure we're pushing the ball through X. Or vice versa. Maybe they extend and they press out at X. We tell our guys, hey, they're not showing up to be vulnerable, moving the ball forward. We're really going to look to hit the 2-man up top, or else, use the backside adjacents to, to re-attack from up top if we're not getting our own there. So, but yeah, I'll go through just kind of, and again, showing how we utilize just play with each one of these, but we just give them the description. These descriptions are obviously pretty simple. It's just saying here, a clearing shot, it's number advantage created from D to O. And again, we just want our guys to understand what we're referring to in transition, outlet from the goalie, looking to push the ball forward, simple clearing transition from defense to offense there. And then as we go through, again, each transition shot, want to show them numbers off of a face-off. And again, obviously, any number advantage could be created in each one of these scenarios, but we more so are trying to make sure that they understand where we are generating the transition numbers from. So, and again, we just have this under our full team breakdown so that our defense and our offense understands it. So, again, subbing scenario. Again, this is where our 6v5 transition is going to come into play. You can see we're getting everyone onto the perimeter. We attack the 6v5 from up top. Again, his man can't recover to play him. We're into the next gap and executing the 6v5 scenario there. So yeah, each one of these, just for time's sake, won't go through everything. But again, just showing a number advantage gained off of a half field ground ball. If it's on the defensive end, we still refer to that as clearing transition. And again, not a perfect system. It's just how we break it down. But off of a ride. Again, just showing a riding turnover, that again, once again, is into a number advantage. So for that breakdown, again, just showing an unsettled, every different scenario there. We show our early offense, or again, want our guys to know each one of those 6 scenarios for unsettled. And then if we cross over the midfield line and we don't have a number advantage, this first clip here, more so looking at a trap with the point attack bend. We expose them in the 2-man game. We have 2 examples on this one, but that one more so pushing through the next to the backside there. So, right. And then once we get into the settled scenarios, like I said, we'll get to the up top dodges. And again, it's just our way of saying, where we want to move the ball out of our dodge. So again, simple shot on the run example, defense is late to slide, we're getting our own. And again, we have the descriptions within each one of these. 2-man, this is a clip that we saw earlier, but again, we're just referring to any 2-man action that takes place, where we're utilizing the up top adjacents in any form there, to be able to move the ball off the initial dodge. And then again, midi backside, we're just saying that we're pushing the ball through X out of our dodge.
So as you break these down and like I know we talked about this one in particular, the one that feeding the inside from up top, right? Which is, I think most coaches are pretty cold on that one. It's not the best look. I know we talked about it as a way you present these percentages and you'll say, okay, for that one, usually that's a pretty low percentage. And do you find that like it just helps them follow like and be really intentional about how they're attacking and follow the scouting report? Because obviously, Matt and I, we've talked about this a bunch, right? You put all that information to a scouting report and are they going to do what you say they're going to do? But do you find by breaking it down like this, providing the data that, kind of shows, hey, look, this is actually what happens against our opponents. Do you find that they, follow the report, scout better?
Yeah, without question. And, when we do our scouting reports, Nick, again, going beyond the shot breakdown and using just play, they can click in and when we say, hey, out of up top dodges, we're looking to either get our own or feed the ball forward through X. The scouting report will obviously reference that. But then, they can go on to Just Play and watch the videos of, 8 clips where somebody's producing, against that respective opponent, pushing the ball through X off of an up top dodge. And again, we want to give our guys as much freedom and flexibility as possible, but also have the structure. And again, the reads, whether they're stretching, whether they're getting under, whether they're getting over, we want to have them always have that flexibility to play creatively and not script what they're doing. But at the same time, it's as simple as, where we want to generally move the ball out of our dodges, and again, we can break down to where we just say, hey, this game, it's, really all midi 2-man and, moving the ball through X. and then they can go onto the scouting report, see that, and then go on to Just Play and watch all the examples of, that team being exposed in those specific scenarios there. So, and again, with the percentage breakdown, it's pretty easy when a team through 4 games that we've broken down has given up, 2 shots on feeds to the inside out of an up top dodge and nobody's scored in 4 games. We just tell our guys we're not looking to make that luck. It hasn't gone in 4 games against them. Let's not try to force the square peg into a round hole. And, just because you think that guy's open on the inside, it's just percentage wise, it's not going to work out in our favor. And that's not where we're going to look to move the ball out of our dodge. So the breakdown really just kind of helps, again, let them play free within our system and utilize our offense in the way that they, would without a scout. But it just gives them a little more direction of where we are looking to move the ball out of each respective dodge.
Yeah, I like you said, play free, but also fast, right? And so that's coming full circle to what we're presenting here is organizing the chaos so we can play fast. And yeah, if you're thinking more, you're probably not playing as fast, right? But if you know exactly how, as an offensive player, how you're supposed to be attacking the defense in any given game, of course you're going to play a little bit faster. Like, oh, no, that option's not there. This is what we're looking. We're looking for those backside, midi to backside lot dodges or the 2-man up top or whatever it is. You just know, hey, that's what we're looking for in this game. And so I like that. I think that obviously plays a big part in how you guys continue to play fast and keep the guys focused on what works. So I love that. Matt, any other questions coming up on your end that you saw?
No, I think there was one that popped. Well, actually, just one just popped up now. Actually, going back to these terms, what dictates next versus trap in loose matchups, first and out or question mark. So
that's a great question.
That dictator.
Yeah, what we really base that off of is just reading the matchup. So again, if it's a fresh guy that's, a short stick with the ball and we feel like it's, and it's an omitty that he's going to be dodging on, we're running the next. We want to take advantage of that matchup. We want to try to get our own shot or else at least draw a slide and, push the early segment from there. But, if it's a guy who's exhausted, that's like we tell our ball carrier that they can make the trap call or the cycle call. Where, we don't want our attackman yelling next where we expect that guy to get a good hard dodge to the cage if he's exhausted. So in that scenario, he might just say, hey, I don't have the gas to go right now. Like I'm calling trap and, I can kind of put the responsibility more on the attackman where I'm throwing down to him and picking down for him and, not having to be the one that's actually generating the offense there. Same thing where, if it's on a pull, if it's a pull that got onto the field and, they were able to sub quickly and it's not a matchup we want, we'll more so look to trap it. Or maybe for us, it's a pull, and we're not telling that guy to dodge one-on-one and get his own in that scenario and run the next. Would rather have him throw down, pick down, and run the trap there. So it's really based upon the matchup and what we're getting out of the original ball carrier there.
Gotcha.
Makes sense.
That's why I asked earlier about the 6v5 being, like it said, must trap, because I was thinking in my mind that you would definitely have, if it was a 6v5, you'd almost definitely have a midi on the ball carrier. And then you're putting them in a 2-man situation where you're probably, could get a switch, or you're just putting a midi in a vulnerable situation to have to negotiate a pick on the wing in transition. So that's why I was wondering if that was a rule. But obviously, it's obviously case by case. I didn't really think about just their, how much gas they got, and it's obviously a big part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to that point, I mean, with the trap specifically, I mean, what we find is that, it opens up more spacing because typically when you have a throw down, pick down, that next person in the rotation is going to jump a little bit harder to the ball and open up more space behind them. But it also takes a little bit more time. So like in our subbing game specifically, like if we have a 10-yard jump on the sub, we're probably going to trap it, because we feel like we have enough time. So let's take advantage of the spacing, to be able to execute there. If it's a 3-yard jump, we're not going to look to trap because that trailer coming in behind the play is probably going to match up before we can actually execute that throw down, pick down. So in that scenario, if it's, shorter time rather than look to trap, that's when we're going to more so look to drag or, dodge a corner and attack the gaps behind it.
That makes sense.
Great.
Cool. Good. All right. Well, I don't think we have any more questions coming up. So just a huge thanks to Drew for hopping on today and teaching us. And just also a reminder for all of our clients, we here at Just Play want to make sure that you're taken care of. So if there are ever any questions, just hit that blue button, the question mark in the top right-hand corner of your system, and that'll get to our support team, and we'll make sure you get your questions answered within 20 minutes. It's something we take a lot of pride in, and so we'll make sure we take care of you. So thank you to everyone for joining and spending some time with us today. Again, Drew, thank you for your help, and everyone just have a great day.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.